I am Vinnie Tortorich, folks. Your good intentions have been stolen, but don't worry. I'm here to help you get them back. You may be soft and succulent at the beginning of this process, but hang in there. Before long, you will be lean and mean, guaranteed, just like the woman on the other mic. It's the Friday show. This woman has been on the show before, and she was also in my first movie, Fat, a Documentary, and I love her to death. I wish we could have had our off camera conversation, our off mic conversation going on, because that might have been more helpful than anything we will talk about today. She's got a new book out there called Change Your Diet, Change Your Mind. I'm talking about Dr. Georgia Ede. How you doing, Georgia?
Mr. Vinnie Tortorich, a pleasure to be back with you. Thank you for that wonderful introduction.
It's always great to talk to you, Georgia. And you know, you're like Nina Teicholz. If I could get you on every other Friday, I would, because I'm worried about where the world is heading. And we see all these psychological problems now. Like, it's everywhere. Like if you turn on media, you find out some kid just shot up a school.
Yeah.
And every friend I talk to, and I do mean almost every friend I have, they have kids now with real psychological problems, like real things going on where they're trying all these different protocols and medications and one psychiatrist after another. And some of these people are back in LA who I'm still in contact with. I'm in the middle of Virginia now. Some of these people are here. You meet these people and you hear all of this stuff. And it just makes me wonder, because when I was a kid, not every kid had a problem. Not every kid had ADHD. Not every kid had ADD. Not every kid was on the, I'm doing air quotes, the spectrum. It seems like everybody's on a spectrum now. And it really concerns me. And it's not just the kids, but it's adults. I mean, just this morning, and this is going to tie into what we're talking about, I saw on my Twitter, X, whatever it's called this week. This woman, Robyn, who's been on the show, she was going, it's been 4 years since I got my life back. And, she's got some disorders, right? And she was overweight. And so you can see that she's lost a lot of weight. Maybe, I don't know how much weight she's lost, 70, 80 pounds. The face is completely different.
Mm.
But she said, losing weight was a byproduct. The fact that I got my life back, right? Like she's fighting all of these mental problems that she simply corrected by eating low carb.
Yeah.
What say you?
Yeah. I mean, I see that all the time. And it's, really, the problem is, as you know very well, that we've been feeding ourselves improperly our entire lives. And the reason why, and including our brains, and the reason why we've been feeding our brains improperly our entire lives is because we've been given the wrong information about nutrition for decades and decades. So now several generations of us, we're all unhealthy. Almost all of us are metabolically unhealthy, mentally unhealthy, physically unhealthy. And it's simply a matter of having the right information. If you have the right information, dietary changes can help you with even very serious mental health problems in ways that no medicine can. And very quickly, I mean, within a matter of weeks, in most cases, you can see meaningful, sometimes life-changing changes to your mental health, sometimes even complete recovery, even sometimes from some very serious mental illnesses. And most people do not know that that's possible. We were taught as psychiatrists to think about mental illnesses as, chronic and mysterious and incurable. And now we see, myself and a number of my colleagues and people who do this work, metabolic psychiatry, we see recoveries. We don't see everybody recover, but I see most people that come to me for help who are willing to change their diet meaningful improvement, noticeable improvement to some degree, and sometimes to, again, to complete recovery. And this is just not something I was taught to even try to accomplish.
So how did that begin? Where was the beginning for you? Because at the time, I don't think you're there anymore, but at the time you were at Harvard. How did you fall into this? Were you just researching something else? Did you fall ass backwards into it? Did someone walk in and say, "Hey, I tried this ketogenic diet, this low carb diet, and it started working for me"? Because I mean, look, that's what Dr. Atkins. That's what happened to him. A guy walked in, one of his patients walked in, and he had lost a ton of weight, and Atkins says, "What did you do?" And he goes, "I just stopped eating anything that was white, bread and pasta and sugar." And then Atkins went out and found the letters on corpulence from way back when, and went down this road, and that's how Atkins got started. How did you come to this?
Yeah. So, and before I tell you how, I just want to say the whole reason I wrote this book is because I am tired of hearing about people having to accidentally stumble on these interventions after years and years of trying other things that don't work. So, everybody, I firmly believe this, everybody with a mental health condition deserves to know about these options from day one, not after they have failed 10 different medications. And so I stumbled into this through my own health issues. I think this is how a lot of health professionals stumble into these things. I was practicing the way I was trained, psychotherapy, medications, and I did that for 10 years. I loved my work. I loved working with people and trying to get to the bottom of things and connecting with people and trying to help. But during those 10 years, I was noticing that my practice was gradually filling up with people who just weren't getting that much better. And it doesn't take long for a psychiatrist to fill a practice because most people are coming in and they're never going out.
Right.
They become lifelong patients, refills, changing medications. This medication is causing this side effect. Is there another medication to deal with that side effect? And it's all trial and error and practicing in the dark. We have no good tests we can offer you. It was a very frustrating process for both sides, right? And so,
Right.
so here I was, practicing, and I'm in my early 40s, and my health started to decline. So these mystery issues, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, IBS, migraines, the kinds of things that a lot of my middle-aged patients were complaining to me about that I had no clue how to help them with. And now here I am becoming one of them and thinking, oh my gosh, something is terribly wrong. And I was starting to have trouble working full time because I was just not feeling good. And so I went to all these Harvard specialists, caring, intelligent, had every test under the sun. Everything they told me was normal. But of course, something was not normal. And, I was exercising religiously. I was running at that point 7 miles 4 times a week and weight training on alternate days. I was in really good physical shape. I was eating a low fat, low cholesterol, high fiber diet, calorie restricting, exercising, because I've had weight problems my whole life since I was 7 years old. And I thought I was doing everything right. And yet I was still, really my health was going downhill. So because one of the issues was IBS, and sometimes after I would eat out, my stomach would hurt a lot. And I thought, well, at least I can maybe there's something I'm eating that's hurting my stomach. I could at least start there, right? So
Right.
6 months of trial and error, changes to my diet, food and symptom journal. 6 months later, stomach pain's gone, chronic fibromyalgia pain gone, fatigue gone, migraines gone. I felt amazing, felt better than I ever had in my life. But my mental health, which I wasn't even trying to improve, I didn't even think of mental health as an issue I had garden variety things that I thought everybody had. Anxiety on Sunday nights before Monday morning work, right? Exhaustion at the end, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm completely spent. Can't get anything done after that point. and depression in the wintertime. Like all these things that we think of as normal, they all
Right.
disappeared too. At my concentration, my mood, my energy, sleep, everything was better. And I thought, this strange upside down diet that I arrived at, because I basically ended up turning my diet upside down. It was mostly animal food, mostly meat, seafood, poultry, a few vegetables that I could tolerate, very low carbohydrate, ultimately ketogenic, very low fiber, and high in fat and cholesterol and animal foods. No grains, no legumes, none of those things we're told that we're supposed to base our diet on. And that's the diet that cured me. But I thought, I knew nothing about nutrition at the time. I thought,
But Georgia,
amazing, but
let's
this
go.
guy's going to kill me.
I want to go back a little bit because when people hear these podcasts, they're moving around. They're on subways. They're walking down the street. They're cutting grass. People listen to podcasts and they go, oh, "Okay, yeah, she went from this to that. What was she talking about again?" Because I know this because they write to me and they'll go, "Who was that woman you had on? And what was the black diet?" I want you to nail it down just a little bit more for me because that's the world we live in. People need it. We need it dumbed down. I don't want you to say I was eating fiber and I was eating. What
Okay.
did your diet look like the day before you started eating the other way? And then I want to know what it looked like when you changed it.
Sure, great. So for years and years, basically what happened when I was a kid growing up with a weight problem, I ate. I was Weight Watchers, low calorie. I would have been every diet was always. I was trying to eat 800 calories a day, 800 to 1,000 calories a day.
Oh,
It was
gosh.
salads and things like that, right? So I did that for years and years, but that worked sort of. It was hard to maintain, but it worked. For tell me you lose weight repeatedly.
You were white knuckling. Yeah.
Yeah, white knuckling and on and off and relapsing and all the kind of for years and years. Then in my 30s, I discovered the South Beach diet. And so that was okay, low glycemic. Okay, that seems to be more helpful. It did help me a lot more than the low calorie diet did. It was easier for me to keep my weight closer to my healthy range. I still had to exercise a ton, and it still was hard, but it was easier, right? It worked better. And then that stopped working. And so my mom in the 90s had lost 90 pounds on the Atkins diet. You mentioned Atkins.
Yeah.
She bought the book. Everyone in my family's always had weight problems, right? She lost 90 pounds on the Atkins diet. I thought, wow, that's interesting. Um, and so I tried the Atkins diet, but I tried it in this way that I didn't understand a lot about it. And I was in residency. I didn't have time to learn about it. I was like, heavy cream and lots of nuts and cheese. And I was eating very high calorie, very high fat. And I gained 10 pounds. I felt terrible.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, okay, this doesn't work. The Atkins diet doesn't work. And so I went back to my South Beach. And then when I was working on Cape Cod, after I'd finished residency and everything, that's when I started to feel bad and my health went downhill. So when I was doing this experiment, changing my diet with the Food and Symptom Journal, around that time, what I was basically eating was, I remember I would eat soy milk and I can't remember what kind of cereal it was. It was like a high fiber cereal that I was eating with soy milk in the morning. For lunch, I was having fat-free yogurt and a salad, sometimes with some chicken on it. And then for dinner, I would have like fish or white chicken breast without the skin and some vegetables. That sort of eating sort of that way. And always like big salads and fiber and dairy products and soy products and of course Diet Coke, like a drink. So I was eating and I must also say a lot of Splenda. I was using a lot of Splenda because on South Beach you're not supposed to have sugar. And so, that's what it looked like. Just a lot of salads and poultry and seafood and soy and non-fat dairy.
Georgia, I've never really talked about this on a podcast, but you brought up, Splenda and the whole thing. I'm a sugar addict, right? That's why I never touch it. Like an alcoholic, I just abstain because if I have one piece of anything, my brain is searching.
Yeah.
And when I was younger and more energetic, I would leave the house. Like if I had something Like if I ate some raisins or something back in the day, now I'm searching, and I would leave the house to go buy ice cream, right? Or whatever it was, and just eat it until it was all gone. So I know my limitations. And I remember back in the 80s, and I've never talked about this on a podcast before,
Hmm.
but I went, okay, everyone's using, that's when, everything went in the 70s. You're younger, you're a few years younger than me, I think. And
I'm 59, 59.
yeah, I'm 61. I knew you were younger than me. I just couldn't remember how much younger. Back in the 70s, you'll remember everything was the pink package,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
The sweet and lows, pink package, pink package. And then somewhere in the 80s, the blue package came out,
NutraSweet.
NutraSweet. And then we had the yellow package and the whole thing. But when the NutraSweet came out, I was in college, and boy, I love coffee. I love coffee so much I own a coffee company now. So I was always a coffee guy. I don't know if you know, I was having a double espresso when you and I were talking before the show started. But I realized, oh, wait a minute, I can make a cafe au lait, just coffee, some cream in it, and then I can put these blue packets in there, and it was like having a dessert. And I
Yeah.
can walk around with this dessert. I was still at Tulane. I was still getting my undergraduate degree and the whole thing. Oh my God, this was like dessert in a mug, right? So all I had to do was get these blue packets, and they were everywhere around Tulane. They were, every office when I was talking to professors. Hey, you mind if I take a couple of those blue packets? I'd see them on the table when I go eat dinner somewhere. I'd take a couple of blue. I was broke as a student. I would just grab the blue packets and pour them in my coffee. And then I noticed something that I had never noticed before about myself. And you tell me what this is. You're the MD, not me. I would, because I think all the time. I'm always in thought, right? I'm somewhat of a loner, and I'm always in thought, and I'm always thinking. And I would be thinking of something, and then my mind would wander, and I could not remember what I was thinking. It
Mm.
was almost like a blank came over me, and I would get very frustrated. It's like, what was I just thinking? I need to get back to that thought because I was onto something. And that continued for that 1 year period or so when I thought I had found the mecca of how to sweeten
Mm.
a drink, to stay away from other sugars, right? I'm going to put this fake sweetener in here, and it's going to keep me away from ice cream and everything else that I really want. And it worked like a charm, except I had problems keeping a thought straight in my brain, and
Mm.
sometimes completely wiped out
Wow.
until I stopped taking that product. And then
Interesting.
it came back. Now, that's not a study. That's, in one, but I could never think straight when I was using that product.
I'm
Have
a
you ever heard anything like that?
Yeah, so I have my own experience with the blue packets was it gave me really bad headaches, and I used sweeteners throughout my entire life. I never liked saccharin. I never liked sweet and low, but so that was a little tough for me. But I liked NutraSweet better, but it didn't agree with me. And I've had some patients that I've worked with who notice either mental or physical side effects from specific sweeteners that seem to be very individual. Like some people tolerate them well, some people have headaches, some people have fatigue, some people have brain fog, some people get cravings, lots of different types of side effects from sweeteners. And I think they are very different from one person to the next. But I can tell you one thing, our bodies just weren't designed to see these chemicals. And who
Yeah.
knows? I mean, who knows what they're actually doing to us? And so, I'm a big fan of, keeping things as quote unquote natural as you can.
Yeah.
And coming back to the yellow packets, which I don't use anymore, but Splenda, most of what's in that yellow packet is sugar. It's dextrose and maltodextrin, which are simple sugars that turn instantly into glucose in the bloodstream. There's a very tiny amount of sucralose in that packet. It's mostly sugar. And so, I mean, I've had patients who, eat 10, 12 packets of Splenda a day, in iced tea or in coffee or what have you. And it can really interfere with their health goals.
And how does it? besides just the health goals, I read things all the time, and they talk about the reward of sugar on the hippocampus and all this stuff that I don't really understand. I remember I was having a conversation with Dr. Drew Pinsky, and I was saying, Drew, I read this thing the other day, and they're saying that sugar is as addictive as cocaine. And Drew, he piped up and went, well, hang on. Cocaine also does this, that, and the other thing. And cocaine really lights your brain up this way. And the sugar, the hippocampus and, blah, blah, and the reward. And, blah, 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 blah. And I let him talk for 5 minutes. And I said, yeah, but Drew, here's the difference. We're not giving cocaine to kids at birthday parties.
Exactly.
We're not saying that it's okay. We know that cocaine is not good, right? But we're giving this other drug that's almost doing the same thing to kids at birthday parties. What say you?
Thank you for that's a really great way of thinking about this, because and I write about this in the book, is that sugar is the only addictive substance that we sanction for children. So,
Yeah.
we would never start your kid at, 2 years old on alcohol, and, just get them, every single day. I mean, if we think of sugar as a food for children, that sweets are what kids are supposed to have, right? We think of, I mean, just about every food that's marketed to kids is loaded with sugar, and parents don't, they use it as a treat. They use it as a reward. They use it as a way to, if your kid's having a little meltdown and you need a little peace and quiet, and I want some ice cream, I want a cookie, I want a, popsicle, then it's often granted. And
Yeah.
the problem with this is that, yes, sugar can be addictive in a significant portion of the population. There's some great research on this by Dr. Ashley Gerhardt, about how many people actually become addicted to sugar and other refined carbohydrates. But the things that parents don't know, that I want them to know, is that the child's brain is still developing, and it's developing until their early 20s. And so whatever pathways you are using all the time and reinforcing as an adult, that those pathways get hardwired into the brain. So, and then there's this pruning process that takes place until the early 20s, where the brain is trying to figure out, okay, which pathways are you using all the time that we're going to keep, and which pathways are you not using? We're going to destroy those. And so these sugar pathways become hardwired, and it becomes much harder later in life to change your habits. And so parents need to know, not only is sugar addictive, but it's also damaging to the brain. It is causing all of the problems that we see in all of the mental health conditions that we are aware of. Inflammation of the brain, something called oxidative stress, which is why we're always told we're supposed to eat all these antioxidants, and something called insulin resistance, which I'm sure your audience knows a lot about. You are literally, with the more sugar you eat over the course of your lifetime, the harder it becomes for your brain to use that sugar for energy. And your brain gradually begins to lose steam. And this takes place silently over decades. And so this is not a food. Sugar is not a food. And flour is the same. Flour, all of the refined carbohydrates are just sugar. That's all they are. And they are equally damaging to the brain, to mental health, to physical health, to metabolic health.
Georgia, I would go one step further with that and say that the refined carbohydrates are actually worse, because sugar, and this is my specialty, is dealing with this part. Sugar just gives you a spike and goes back down once the insulin piles in on it. When you take in a complex carb, the sugar goes up and you have a load that goes on a lot longer. So you have more insulin trying to bury that. So you stay on that high much longer. Wouldn't you agree with something like a pasta or a bread versus just eating a sugar where it goes up and down, right? You have a load that you're dealing with.
So that's a great point. So there's a difference. So there, one of the things that I researched for the book was this: what is the definition of a refined carbohydrate? What is the definition of a whole grain versus a refined grain? And it's just madness when you research this. But what you're saying is very interesting, because if you eat, say, pure sugar, yes, you get this very clean, steep spike and crash. But if you eat a complex carbohydrate, say like a whole grain bread, that has refined carbohydrate in it mixed with some less refined. So it's refined. The grain is refined to different degrees, right? So refined is all about particle size. So if you've got a bunch of glucose molecules strung together, that's a complex carbohydrate. If it's just single or a couple or three stuck together, then that's a refined carbohydrate, simple sugars, simple complex. And the complex ones, like you say, they take longer to break down, but they still require the same amount of insulin. It's just spread out over a longer period of time. So now you've got this situation. I'm so glad you mentioned this, where your insulin level is just staying up all the time between meals, and it never gets a chance to come down. And you need your insulin levels to spend at least some time in low. You need to spend some time on a regular basis in low insulin mode. And if your insulin's high all the time, not only will you develop insulin resistance, but you're never going to be able to burn fat, because if your insulin levels are too high, it turns fat burning off. So in between meals, you could have 100 pounds of extra body fat. Your body doesn't even know it, can't access it, has no idea you've got all this stored energy just sitting there hoping to be burned. Your insulin levels are too high, you can't burn it. So then in between meals, you get hungry for more sugar. It's completely upside down and backwards what we're told to eat.
It is. And, Gary talked about that. And I want to say good calorie, bad calorie, Gary Taubes. Folks, don't read that book. Gary hates that I say that. Read the next book, what I call the Reader's Digest version of that book, called Why We
Why
Get
we
Fat
get
and What
fat.
to Do About It. Because your body actually thinks you're emaciated and starving, and you have 100 extra pounds, on your frame.
Exactly.
And by the way, what you're describing, Georgia, is exactly what a dietitian, or an RD, a registered dietitian, will tell you. Oh, these are the good carbs.
Uh-huh.
Eating these complex carbs, these are the good carbs, right? There are no good carbs, period. Not from where I'm sitting. How about you?
If you have insulin resistance, which the majority of us now do, there really are no good carbs. If you have really excellent metabolism, which almost none of us now do, you may be able to safely tolerate fruits and starchy vegetables like we've been eating, for millennia, but that's not most of us anymore. Most of us
Right.
have lost our ability to safely process not only the carbohydrates, from whole foods, from not only refined carbohydrates, but from whole foods as well. And one of the things that people often get confused about is they'll say, well, I switched from white bread to whole grain bread,
Right.
and you know, there actually is no such thing as whole grain flour. You can't
Right.
make bread with whole grains, just whole grains, because they won't stick together. You can't make a bread. And so there's this definition, the USDA, or is it the FDA or the USDA? I'm going to get them mixed up. Um,
It's the FDA.
I think it's the FDA. Thank you. So they say you can label your product whole grain as long as you can take a whole grain, you can blast it to smithereens in a factory. As long as you put the parts back together in the same ratio that they were in when the grain was whole, you can call that product whole grain. And so, that makes me think of, that's a very strange definition of whole grain. It's like, I think of Inigo Montoya, like, you keep using that word, but I don't think, I don't think it means what you think it means. Whole.
Yeah.
That's not whole. So people are very confused about good carbs and bad carbs. All you need to know is you need to know how those foods, whatever foods you're eating, whether it's oatmeal or popsicles, whatever they are, how are those affecting your blood sugar and your insulin levels? Nobody should eat the refined carbs, but how many of us can get away with at least some small amount of, fruits and vegetable type carbohydrates? That's an individual assessment that can be done. But I would also say carbohydrate is the only macronutrient. We got protein, fat, carbs. Those are the macronutrients. It's the only one that's completely optional. You
Yeah.
must eat protein. You must eat fat. You can get your carbohydrate from outside your body, from your diet, or you can make it from inside your body with protein and fat. And when you do it that way, when you make your own glucose from inside, you do it safely, reliably, without any peaks or valleys or drama. There's no risk involved in this. And you make it from inside. That's the safest way to make it. But it's your choice.
Yeah. I tell people all the time, it's a non-essential, which means your body will make it. People don't, you'll hear essential and non-essential when it comes to vitamins and minerals and the whole thing. Carbohydrate is a non-essential.
Yes.
If you don't take it, your body will make it. It'll make it through gluconeogenesis from protein. But your body, an essential is protein, and fat is also an essential. You have to take those in because your body can't make it on their own. So, in essence, carbohydrates, we've been told our entire lives that you need three macronutrients: fat, protein, and carbohydrates. But in fact, you only need fat and protein. Your body takes care of the rest.
Yes.
I'm going to meander right into this ad for Villicapelli. You were talking about, hey, the FDA allows these, you can blast a, a piece of wheat into smithereens and still call it whole wheat. The FDA, folks, allows companies to do that. It also allows companies that make olive oil to call an olive oil 100% pure olive oil. It can say things on the package like organic. It can say first pressed, cold pressed, 100% pure virgin olive oil, and still be cut up to 40%. That's what our FDA allows. That's a fact. You just heard Dr. E talking about this with wheat. Villicapelli olive oil is the best olive oil on the planet. Why do I say that? Well, because they pay me every month. But besides that, I was saying that before they were paying me because I'm a freak when it comes to olive oil. I know the owners of this company, Paul Capelli, God rest his soul, the guy died a few years ago. And his husband, Stephen Crutchfield, they're in Italy making the best olive oil on the planet. Once Paul died, Stephen continued on. We still have a wonderful relationship with Villicapelli. Go get it. Save 10% by putting in promo code Vinnie, Vinnie, no MPY, promo code Vinnie to get Villicapelli olive oil. I believe in this product so much, we actually use it in my vitamin D over at my vitamin company. Villicapelli olive oil. Go get it right now, and you will love it. Oh, by the way, if you spend more than $125 after my discount, you get free shipping. And that's a lot when you're buying 3 liters of olive oil. Shipping can be somewhat expensive. So get it all. Villicapelli olive oil. Yeah, Georgia, the FDA allows all kinds of shenanigans to go on. I tell people all the time, if you cannot walk up to the plant and eat it off of the vine, it's probably not going to be good for you. And they'll say, huh? What? It's like, okay, try to walk up to a piece of wheat and put it in your mouth and eat it. Your stomach will be knotted up. It will go into distress. Number one, your teeth will be crunched up. I don't think people realize how hard a kernel of wheat is. Same with corn. Go to the stalk. You cannot eat corn off of, you got to cook it into oblivion before you can eat corn. And then you still see the husk come out when you eliminate, you see the husk. Your body can't even grind that down, right? It just takes the carbohydrate from the middle and the outer shell is still whole. We are not meant to eat these grains at all unless we highly process these grains. The same is not true for, fruit and vegetables and everything else, right? But as you said, we've punched that card. Once you're metabolically broken, you really can't even have those things anymore. That's why for a lot of people, I say, look, if you want to get your fruit and vegetables in there, you're down to olives and avocados and some berries on the fruit side of it because they're the only low glycemic fruit you're going to get a hold to. And then berries should be on that teeter-totter of maybe you shouldn't have it. And then on the other side of it, you have vegetables. And if you want to get your vegetables, stick to cruciferous vegetables. They're going to be your biggest bang for your buck. But again, if you're metabolically broken, you don't want to have a lot of those, right? So you have a real problem on your hand. What say you about the situation?
I agree with absolutely everything you said. And, you know, diet is needs to be at this point because so many of us are broken in so many different ways, not just metabolically, but in terms of gut health and immune health, and our the health of our nervous system, right? So we've not only have we lost a lot of us have lost our ability to safely tolerate the carbohydrates that we should, I think, be able to tolerate more of. A lot of us have also lost our ability to tolerate a lot of the plant foods, the vegetables, even that even the low carb vegetables that and nuts and things like that we should be able to tolerate because our gut health has been damaged. So, we evolved alongside a lot of these plant foods, and we've been eating plants and animals for millennia. So one of the plans in my book is so I've got a kind of a low glycemic paleo plan. I have a ketogenic plan, a carnivore plan, but these have all been modified to remove some of the plant foods that are more likely to bother people, especially if they are sensitive. And because so many of us now have damaged gut and immune system health. And so I think it's very useful to know that not all fruits and vegetables are created equal. It's not as though, I mean, that's the way we're taught. We're taught the more fruits and vegetables you eat, the better. You need a huge diversity of them. They're all equally amazing. You can't eat too many. We're not taught the simple truth about vegetables is each one is different. They contain different vitamins. Some of them are not very nutritious at all. Some of them, like you said, the cruciferous vegetables are fairly nutritious as vegetables go. But we're not taught like these plant foods defend themselves with toxins, right? And some of us have become very sensitive to these. And some of us, even if we're not sensitive, can overdo it. You can actually have too much of these foods because we're not designed to handle very high fiber, very high plant diets as much as a lot of people who have wishful thinking about plants versus animals, eating plants versus animals. We just can't handle too much. Plant foods are very hard on the body, so a little goes a long way. And so understanding some of the differences between these plant foods can be useful to people when let's say you've tried a low carb or ketogenic diet and you're not feeling better enough. And so there are other interesting pieces of information that can help you personalize your diet.
Obviously, today I'm going to be buying several copies of this book to hand out to friends. And I'm not kidding. Change your diet, change your mind. I will be buying several. That's what I do when there's a book and I think it can help people. Now, whether they pick the book up, read it, understand it, and then apply it to their kids, that's a different story. I hope they do. You can only lead a horse to water. Several friends, as I said, a couple in LA, where the parents are still taking care of the kids into their late 20s, right? Because the kids can't really be on their own.
Yeah.
They're all sorts of problems. I have a friend here who has a kid on the spectrum. Kid is 22, 23, still living at home, still being supported by the parents because they have all of these different problems. And no one is looking at diet. I mentioned diet, and what I get from them is, yeah, Vinny, you don't understand. We have a real problem here. And
Huh.
I'm always going, yeah, I know you have a real problem, but look, there's people like Dr. Georgia Ede out there. She understands these problems. I'm glad I have a book now, and hopefully these people will be reading the book because you can only say so much to them, right? And they just go, yeah, you don't understand. We can't fix this with a diet. But you're telling me we can. What would you say to these parents?
Yeah, boy, that's a great scenario to work with. And we do think, oh, this is a serious mental health issue. How could just simply changing my diet make a difference? We need real help. We need strong medications. We need the best psychotherapists. We need an inpatient treatment program. We need serious help. We need a real powerful intervention. And what I'm here to tell everybody, I've been practicing psychiatry for 25 years. I practiced the usual way for the first 10 years. I practiced in a combination of ways, some nutrition for the next 5 or so years. And now I only practice nutrition interventions because these are the most powerful interventions available to me as a psychiatrist. I have never seen real recoveries before I started using these strategies. I had never been able to empower people to improve their own mental health in a very short period of time. I was never able to discharge people from my practice before because they just weren't getting better enough. And these are the reason why these strategies are powerful is because imagine you have what's like a really expensive fancy car that everybody would want, Vinny. Like what would that be? Like a Corvette, a
Uh,
Jag, or
yeah, Acura, Jaguar, or something.
yeah. So
Something
let's say
like
you
that.
have an amazing, so let's say you have a Jaguar, right? Somebody
Okay.
gives you a Jaguar, and you start putting sugar in the gas tank. The Jaguar's not going to work. You're going to bring it to the
Right.
mechanic, the best mechanic in town. They're not going to be able to help you because you're not feeding the Jaguar properly. And
Right.
and all you need to do, it's not that there's anything wrong with the carburetor or the timing belt or the engine. You're not feeding the Jaguar properly. It's a beautiful car, but it doesn't work. And so you might have a child who, underneath all of that junk that they're eating, and it's not just the junk food, it's the whole food plant, it's the other foods too that we're told are healthy for us and we're told to eat a certain way. Even when they're trying to follow the guidelines, even the parents who aren't feeding their kids junk are still not feeding their children properly because they don't have the right information. So the brain needs a diet that is nourishing, contains all essential nutrients, which means it must include some animal foods. And more children are being told, even in their schools, first graders are being told to eat plant-based diets.
Yeah.
This is outrageous. And so the brain must have animal foods. The brain must be protected. So you have to nourish, protect, and energize your brain. That's the principle of the book. Nourish the brain, all essential nutrients. So that means if you base your diet on grains and beans, what you're doing is you are taking the most nutrient poor plant foods, some of the most nutrient poor foods on the planet, basing your diet on those. And not only are they poor in nutrients, they're loaded with anti-nutrients. So even the nutrients they do contain, many of those are not easily available to us. So you're feeding your child, even if you're eating a quote whole foods diet, you're feeding your child nutrient poor foods, and you're supposed to protect the brain from damaging ingredients. And damaging ingredients are, of course, the sugars and the flours and the cereals and the fruit juices. If you're feeding your child fruit juice every morning or cereal every morning, even if it's a quote whole grain cereal, again, there's really no such thing. You're damaging the brain from a young age, and you have to energize the brain properly, which means you got to keep those glucose and insulin levels in a healthy range. And children now have insulin resistance. That was used to be unheard of. So when you feed the brain properly, it's a powerful intervention. And
Yeah.
because it fundamentally changes the structure of the brain, it's getting what it needs, it's not being damaged on a regular basis, multiple times per day by the wrong foods, and the brain starts to work properly. And that's what you want. And why not at least start there before, unless you're in a crisis, start there even just for a few weeks. And that's what I ask in the book. Just try this for 6 weeks or so. See what's possible there before you look to the medications, if you can. And you'd be very surprised what's possible.
Yeah. Nina was here at the house last summer, and basically we sat around screaming at each other, and it's like we were yelling into a literal void in my backyard. The neighbors must have thought, because we're sitting there. She lives in New York. They're now doing meatless Mondays and no meat Fridays, and that's no meat Fridays. That's not even an alliteration. I could get behind meatless Mondays as an alliteration, but it's not even rhyming anymore. We're not even getting there, right? And Nina and I were sitting in my backyard screaming at each other. And I said, but Nina, here's the problem. We're screaming back and forth at each other and no one else can hear us. We see where the problems are with California. When I was out there, the schools are going crazy there too. Oh, we got to stop eating meat because, the environment and global warming and everything else, all things that aren't true that they're telling kids. So we have these generation of kids coming up that are being told even worse things than we were told about fiber and eight essential vitamins and iron, which was always confusing to me because which Sophie's choice did you make? Because there's 13 essential vitamins, but you chose 8 and then threw some iron in there and you sprayed it onto my flakes. Thanks. None of it seems to make sense. Yet we keep going down this road. Now, I want to switch gears. If you have a little time to spend with me, I want to
Yes,
switch
please.
gears just a little bit. I hate bringing the subject up, but I can't help myself. When I was a kid, when you were a kid, we never heard of school shootings. We never heard of all of these mass shootings, kids walking into theaters and shooting up the theater and the whole thing. And of course, it's easy to blame it on guns, right? But I would push back and go, okay, per person, we had as many guns back then as we do now per person, right? No one chose to grab that gun and go into a theater or into a school. Or if you heard of it, it was just so rare. And it seemed to have started with Columbine.
Yeah.
And I've had experts on that have studied Columbine and the whole thing. This is a very scary thing where when you look at the aftermath of Columbine, let's just use that for an example. The mother of the child, one of I think the Klebold kid, has gone on a crusade to try to figure out. This mother didn't know what was going on in her own house, which is a scary thing.
Yeah.
I don't think she was an absent mother. From what you can tell, she was a good mother. She had no idea what was going on in her own house. And I think we hear about this a lot. I remember hearing one shooting where the mom gave the kid the gun and taught him how to use the gun. And then he killed her and then went out and killed. That might have been Sandy Hook or one of
That
those.
was Sandy Hook. Yeah.
Yeah. And you go on and on and on. You go, okay, who kills their mother and then go unleash on a kindergarten, right? This is not normal behavior.
Correct.
How do we get there? How did we get from our generation never considering any of this to walking into a theater in Colorado, in Aurora, or Sandy Hook, or Columbine, or any of the myriads of other shootings? How did we get here?
I honestly don't know. It's not something that I have personally studied, but I will tell you this. I think there is so much more we can do to improve the mental health of our young people. And I do think that nutrition is a big part of that. I am not here to say that I think that changing, if every kid was eating properly, that there wouldn't be any school shootings. I have no idea if that's the case. But I do think there are other factors involved beyond nutrition. For example, isolation, loneliness, internet culture, things like that. Part of the blessing of internet culture is you can connect with other people and learn things so much more easily than you could before. Part of the downside is you're not really connecting with people. And
Right.
and also if there is some interesting thing that's going on, whether it's horrific or positive, it spreads like wildfire because of the internet, right? So things are catchier now. Ideas spread very quickly, and that's both a good and a bad thing, right? So good ideas spread, but bad ideas also spread, and people can copy each other and do things. So there are many different factors, but I know for a fact, I can tell you, but I do know for a fact, the mental health of our young people is circling the drain, and is no longer. It's so unusual now to have good mental health that we think of bad mental health as normal. We think of it as normal to not be able to
Wow.
bounce back from stress. We think of it as normal to, not be able to handle a challenging situation, to need lots and lots of specialized support to get through the day at school. I mean, I saw this when I specialized in college mental health, and I worked in colleges for 13 years. And even over that 13 year, I mean, it had already started, but even over that 13-year span, I saw every year more and more students arriving on campus, first year students, already taking 2, 3, 4 psychiatric medications, already having been hospitalized psychiatrically one or more times, arriving on campus needing specialized support services to be able to handle school. And more students walking in crisis, needing crisis appointments, needing leaves of absence, having to drop out of school, needing to take a semester off. I mean, needing hospitalization from college campus. Ambulance come and take them to the hospital. This is working in a college mental health service now is like working in an emergency room. It is, there's so many people that are so fragile and suffering so much, truly suffering, that our brain, it feels like our brains are falling apart. And I do think that that's exactly what's happening.
Yeah, my ear was to the ground because my daughter just postgraduate. She just graduated from law school.
Oh,
But
congratulations.
yeah, she's no longer on my tab. She's got a great job and everything. But as an undergrad, it was around the time when we were shooting the movie. She was just going into her undergrad. So as a parent, your ear is to the ground, right? You're picking up what's going on, and that's when I first started hearing about. And I know you know what this is. They would go, "Oh, there are safe rooms in college," and I asked my daughter. I said, "What's a safe room?" And she goes, "It's where you can go when you're scared." And I said, "Scared of what?" So you could be scared of anything. And I said, "So their safe room, is there someone monitoring the safe room?" She's like, "Yeah, sometimes not." And I said, "Well, have you ever been to a safe room?" She goes, "No, I don't seem to have any issues, but I know other people who have been to the safe room." And I'll say, "Well, what goes on there?" And this is when I got, excuse my language, freaked the fuck out. She goes, "Oh, there's teddy bears and there's beanbag chairs and there's coloring books."
Yeah.
I said, "Come on, Tallulah." And she goes, "No, that's these kids are acting like." I said, "So they're going back to like kindergarten in their brain?" And
Yeah.
she goes, "Yeah, I never thought of it that way, but kind of, yeah, there's huggy bears." Or was she serious about that? I mean, I heard that a few other times since then that they have these. Is it called the safe room? What is it called? It's called.
Yeah. So I don't know. I haven't been in college mental health since 2018. We didn't and when I was last working in college setting, it was at Smith College, and I don't recall there being safe rooms. But I wouldn't be surprised if that's something that exists now, because that was certainly what I was noticing on college campuses, was that there was this regression, that a lot of students seemed to be emotionally, uh, developmentally at a younger age than you would expect, a lot less mature, a lot less resilient. Really, that many students, certainly not all, but enough, a significant number of students were really struggling. And I think that the way it felt was that their emotional health was really fragile, so that you could just kind of look at them the wrong way, and they would have a panic attack, or not be able to function, or become very depressed, or want to cut themselves. This is very common among our young people too, is self-injury. And
Yeah,
something is terribly wrong. And this can happen. I just want to make this clear. This can happen even if you have the best parents in the world, if you have all the resources available to you in the world, no matter sort of what culture you come from, right, left, middle, rich, poor, um, ethnicity, doesn't matter, race. I've seen this across all socio-demographic um, uh, uh, sections of college populations. So everyone, nobody's immune from this. And I don't think it's anybody's fault. I think that what I honestly believe this, and I write this in the book, we are destroying our brains from the inside out, and they're no longer able to, our brains are under constant attack from the foods that we are eating. and the brain cannot heal, the brain cannot function, the brain chemistry is not stable. When you're eating in a way that destabilizes you from within, it's not going to matter how good your external environment is if on the inside you are unstable, just inherently unstable. And I explain all the chemistry of that in the book, but I want people to know it doesn't take long. If you have the right information, it does not take long to stay. So I helped publish this study in 2022. You were saying, okay, what if I have a really serious mental health problem? Are you saying that diet can't possibly work, right? I'm too far gone. I need something really serious help. We had 31 patients with severe mental illness, at average ill for an average of 10 years already, as many as 30 years, taking an average of 5 psychiatric medications, and who had treatment-resistant, so-called treatment-resistant bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, and major depression. And they volunteered to come into the hospital in France, try a whole foods, low carbohydrate diet under the supervision of their psychiatrist, many of whom had been working with him for many, many years. He knew them very well. And within 3 weeks, 28 of those 31 patients who were able to stay on the diet, all 28 who were able to stay on the diet for longer than 2 weeks, every single one of them improved. And 43% of them achieved clinical remission.
Wow. I don't think people understand 43% on anything medical is a miracle. That's a miracle.
64% of them left the hospital on less psychiatric medication. That's the opposite of what you usually see.
Yeah, that's just unbelievable. And in 3 weeks, and it makes you wonder why this is not. I mean, why aren't we seeing this in JAMA or any of these other journals? Why aren't we seeing that this can help? What do people have to lose? And and I don't want to get into a whole conversation because I don't know if this is even in your wheelhouse, but the number of people I hear about younger and younger and younger getting things like Alzheimer's and all this type of stuff, all of these degenerative type, mental problems. And I worry about it because I played 13 years of football. I had my head banged up a
Oh,
lot,
yeah.
and I played back in the day of, the old style helmets where they told us to stick our heads in there. Right now, you watch an NFL game, and if the helmets even touch, I mean, the yellow rose of Texas is all over the field. It's they don't even let them touch helmets anymore, and that was just common. And I think about CTE all the time. Every day when I'm taking my coconut oil for the third time that day, it's not just because I'm trying to keep my cancer at bay, but I'm also thinking about my brain health because I've had Mary Newport on this show probably as many times as I've been on the show. I
Wow.
love Mary, and what she was able to do in just a couple of weeks with her husband, just putting him on a ketogenic diet, giving him just a ton of coconut oil, she was able to reverse some of his problems, right? And when I hear this, and you hear what Mary Newport has to say, it makes you wonder why everyone's not doing this.
I that's again why I firmly believe that these interventions need to be presented to patients on day one as options. People need to know what's possible. I think there are a lot of reasons why we don't see this, in kind of mainstream media, although that's changing. It's changing. Metabolic psychiatry is really coming into its own, really, even just in the past few months. There have been national media coverage of this. We were interviewed for a national piece on National Public Radio just a few weeks ago about metabolic psychiatry and the hope of metabolic psychiatry and how exciting the research is right now. And about Alzheimer's, yes, that is in my wheelhouse. I'm a general psychiatrist, adult psychiatrist. I treat adults of all ages, all conditions, and I have worked with people who have mild cognitive impairment and even early to moderate Alzheimer's disease. I include a story in the book about a woman named Fran who had switched, sort of progressed from many years of mild cognitive impairment after a head injury in her 40s to what was looking like early Alzheimer's dementia as she started to become more forgetful, forget how to do things that she'd been doing every day, and losing track of her sentences mid-sentence. Her memory was declining in her 60s. And her primary care doctor said, okay, well, we knew this was coming because you've had this long history of mild cognitive impairment. Early Alzheimer's is here for you. So I'm going to send you to a neurologist. He doesn't have an appointment for 10 weeks. So we're going to get you to the neurologist. She was terrified because, she'd sat down at the sewing machine that she'd used almost every day for 50 years and couldn't remember how to thread the machine. Right.
Wow.
So she was scared to death. And so there she was, scared to death, waiting 10 weeks for this appointment to find out, did she have Alzheimer's and what were they going to, do for her? Meanwhile, her son, who had been working with me using a ketogenic diet for different purposes, asked me if I would see her. And of course, so we had a consultation. I encouraged her to try a ketogenic diet while she was waiting for her appointment. Within 3 weeks, her cognition not only improved, but was better than it had been for many, many years. So she could remember how to thread her machine again, no longer losing her car in parking lots, could follow complicated driving directions without writing them down, was fluent in conversations. She got to the neurology appointment at 10 weeks, and she scored 27 out of 28 on his screening test. And he said, "You don't have cognitive impairment."
Unbelievable. But you see, you'll never see that in a journal, right? Because it's an N1. But we need more of these N1s, Georgia. How do we get that?
Vinnie, thank you for asking this question, because let's say there's some listener out there listening to your program. Let's say their name is, I don't know, Barbara. Let's say there's Barbara out there, or let's say, Joe out there. Let's say you have some kind of mental health issue. You think that, oh, I've always been a depressed person, or I've always been an anxious person, I've always been a scattered person, I've always been moody, whatever it is you think you've always dealt with or been dealing with for a long time. If you are that N=1, who cares if it works for anybody else? All you
Right.
need to do is for it to work for you.
Yeah. Yeah. No, look, I couldn't agree more. And I'm going to guess, and you can say yes or no to this. It's the same when it comes to maybe Parkinson's and some of these other neurological diseases. I mean, I have a friend right now with, he's early ALS, and he looks like he's a slow progressor. He's 75, 76 years old. And I'm hoping he's a slow progressor with the ALS, because the guy's at the gym every day. I know him from the gym,
That's
right?
great.
And he's been a gym rat his whole life. He walks in one. As a matter of fact, he came to me. He rides his motorcycle to the gym sometimes, and he said to me one day, he goes, I'm having trouble, because on a motorcycle, you have to use your foot to click the gears up on the left side. And he goes, my shin and my leg feels numb. What do you think that is? And I said, well, I'm not a doctor. You need to go see a doctor. And a doctor sent him to a specialist. The specialist figured out, oh, wait, he has ALS. But then they figured out he's a slow progressor. And we know that there's no cure. ALS, folks, is Lou Gehrig's disease, is also known as Lou Gehrig's. We know there's no cure for that, right? And I said as much to my friends, like, look, you want to keep slow progressing, but it may behoove you to not eat sugar. That can help you along. You're 76. You might be able to glide right on into 86 if this is going to progress slow enough, right? Even though we know you can't stop ALS, if we can retard it in any way, shape, or form, shouldn't we try to get it to slow down? What say you?
I say I would really strongly encourage him to learn more and consult with somebody about a ketogenic diet in particular. Because if you have a neurodegenerative disease, and there is some emerging science on ALS and ketogenic diets, one of the most important things you can do, one of the most powerful interventions available to you, is ketosis. No sugar and no grains is absolutely, it's vital. I mean, you can't keep eating sugar and grains if you want to protect your mental or physical health, no matter how old you are, no matter what problems you have right now. But if you have a neurodegenerative disease, I really strongly believe that because ketogenic diets are uniquely healing for the nervous system. They can energize those nerve cells and help nerve cells in the brain and the rest of the body heal and recover and protect themselves from ongoing damage. So there's a lot of potential there that I would hope that he would explore.
Do you have a doctor's name that I can even give him? If you don't want to say it right now, you can say it off the air.
No, no,
Either
no.
way.
Well, I can look. I can look off the air for you, but I would also. I do have a clinician directory on my website. It's free for everybody to search, and it's free for clinicians to post their listing there. If you use ketogenic diets to help people with mental health conditions, the directories on my website, diagnosisdiet.com. But though, and some of those people will see neurology patients as well as psychiatry patients.
Oh,
But
good.
then I would also look at the Charlie Foundation website because that's the nonprofit that helps people use ketogenic diets for epilepsy. And there are a lot of neurologists and ketogenic neurology clinics listed on that website. And his condition, of course, falls more in the neurology camp than the psychiatry camp.
Yeah, I should. You know what? You're right. I'm good friends with Jim over there, Jim Abrams.
Yeah.
So I should probably push him towards Jim. I didn't even think of Charlie Foundation for that because you always think of Charlie Foundation, working with the kids. But yeah, that would be. I'm gonna send him in that direction.
Yeah. And it's very
But I'll
important,
send him
for
over
him.
to diagnosisdiet.com. I mean, that's a great resource.
Yeah, and the for anybody who's listening who's thinking about using a ketogenic diet in particular for mental health condition or neurological for any condition really, it's very important to consult with somebody first because it's the diet is very safe. The diet's not dangerous. The diet is uniquely healing. It's very, very healthy for you, healthier than probably what you're eating right now. But the especially if you constructed it properly. But but adapting to the diet can be dangerous if you don't have someone to help you with your medications and your health issues. It is such a powerful intervention that your blood sugar levels, your blood pressure levels, your medication levels, and your mental and physical health can feel temporarily worse and less stable until your body finds its new equilibrium. So there's this period of adjustment that needs to be carefully managed by somebody who knows what they're doing. So that's why I have that directory. And that's also why I would recommend the Charlie Foundation website because they list dietitians and they list clinicians and clinics where you can get people to help you who know what they're doing. So you at least want to talk to somebody and learn more before you even think about trying this kind of an intervention.
Yeah, folks, we're going to have this in the show notes, but I'm going to say it one more time. Diagnosis Diet. Doesn't really roll off the tongue. Diagnosisdiet.com. That's Georgia Eid. That's her website. There's a ton of resources there. Here's the last thing you guys need to hear. The book, Change Your Diet, Change Your Mind. She's gonna make at least 4 sales right now because as soon as I'm done here today, I'm buying 4 of them because I have 4 people to send this book to right away. Uh, Change Your Diet, Change Your Mind. Go get the book right now. You could get it by going to, VinnieTortorich.com. Or, when you go there, click through the Amazon banner. It puts coal in our fire. It gets my train down the track. So you guys can do all of that. Georgia, any final words you want to say before we hit the road here?
Yeah, I just really want people to know that, if you think you've out there, if you have a mental health problem of any kind, um, if you think you've tried everything already, I don't want you to give up because there's so much more you haven't tried yet. And most of the dietary plans and recommendations that are in the book, there are a variety of different ways to approach this. You don't necessarily have to do a ketogenic diet. It's very personalized. There are lots of different ways you can grab on, things you can change. I just want you to know if you have the right information, what I like to say is, hope is on the menu. And if you feel you've lost hope, nothing's worked, you would really be surprised how much more control you have over your mental health, both your current mental health, if you have an existing mental health problem, and your future mental health. If you're worried about Alzheimer's disease or some other neurological disease down the road that runs in your family, you have so much more power over your mental health than you realize. So please don't give up.
There you have it, folks. Georgia, hang out. I want to say goodbye to you off the air. Folks, you know what to do. We all go shopping on Amazon. When you go buy Georgia's book today, remember, click through the banner at VinnieTortorich.com. The book is called Change Your Diet, Change Your Mind. I wanted to say heal, but it's change Go check it out. Georgia, thank you so much for being on. On behalf of Dr. Ede, my name is Vinnie Tortorich. Put life into living and do it with enthusiasm.